I tell you what, last night it was hot and heavy, starting with Purdue beating Illinois, and I'm going to get into all the college hoops and rip that Pampers-wearing jackass Dan Wolken as best I can. But first, Stephen A. Smith. He's not happy. He wants DEI. And what Stephen A. Smith gets. The oft-fired Stephen A. Smith promised a scathing response to our friend Clay Travis, our owner, our sensei, our founder, our liege. Well, Clay Travis says DEI is inherently racist, does more harm than good. Well, Stephen A. Smith hid behind an argument, and he brought some dude in there like a professional guy, professional race-baiting guy. Here's Stephen A. Smith talking about Clay Travis.
Why did you leave out what provoked DEI? Why did you leave out what provoked affirmative action? To sit up there and call for its eradication across the board, where race and color and gender and sexual orientation and all of this other stuff doesn't get taken into consideration. Why do you ignore why it existed to begin with? If you acknowledged why it existed to begin with, and you said that was then, this is now, I would feel you. Because at least you're taking ownership of the iniquitous acts of the past by your race of people. Not all, not most, but some. And if you take ownership of it, then you're empowering yourself to change it. But if you don't take ownership of it, you could never, ever, ever be inclined or provoked to change.
So why does he get to judge what we can never, ever, ever do? Why does Stephen A. Smith get to judge everything in every area? If you don't acknowledge the past, you can never, ever, ever. What? Why do you get to judge this? And just because you yell like a complete idiot doesn't mean that you're right. It means that you're yelling like a complete idiot, that you are, well, incapable of making an argument by having a discussion. But I get a kick out of it. And it's not black or white. It's everybody. Everybody judges. Everybody gets to be the judge. If you don't do this, then you are incapable of doing that. Really? All right, let's hear from Clay.
The only diversity I care about is diversity of thought. Focusing on diversity of color as if that is somehow a strength doesn't make any sense. Cosmetic diversity is not diversity at all. Why does it matter if everybody looks different but thinks the same? That ain't diversity. So I'm opposed to everything except diversity of thought, which is the only diversity that matters. Equity. Equity is BS. I believe in equality of opportunity. I believe that the United States should treat all people, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, gay, straight, male, female, the same under the law. There is a reason why Lady Justice is blind. Equity doesn't do that. Equity tries to give artificial versions of success based on what we think society should look like.
Well, I mean, that would be in a perfect world. Equity, by definition, is the quality of being fair and impartial. All right? So if being fair and impartial is what equity is, then DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, should mean it's impartial. But that's not what happens here. That's not what happens at all. We all know this. I mean, look, I have an agent. I've said this many times. Hey, man, I called him about my niece. My niece is a great, great reporter. She's moving up the ranks very quickly. I called him. I said, hey, can you represent Emily? She's like, great. He knew who she was. Hey, man, is she Asian? Black? That's what we're looking for. That's what everybody's looking for. Now, that isn't exactly fairness. Now, I don't blame African Americans for saying, well, the shoe is on the other foot. I don't blame that at all. And maybe the change that somebody has talked about was this. Maybe the change, remember hope and change and Whitey's got to change and everybody's got to change. Maybe the change is this. Maybe we went from, let's be honest, white people dominating everything to now black, Asian, female, whatever dominating everything, to maybe the change is actually nobody dominates everything. We have a meritocracy. That would be interesting. I hear all the time, change. We need to change. And I always ask a simple question. What's the change? What do you want to see changed? And nobody ever has an answer. Man, I want change. What do you want changed? Thought. Okay, what kind of thought? Well, racism. Okay. But just maybe this is the next step in Martin Luther King's judge folks by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Walk with me. Back in the day, we all know white owned. White owned, white discriminated against. Not most, not some, but not, what did he say? Not all, not most, some. There's a lot of great stories out there both ways. Black people were kept down. Now we've gone through this change. Now we see what happens. Hell, I've been, a victim. I'm never a victim, but I've told you this before. I'm supposed to do the ACC tournament with the best director at ESPN, Scott Johnson. Both of us are white. Scott did every Monday night ACC game as the director of the broadcast, the main broadcast. We get a call, hey, you guys are off. Who's in? 2 black guys. One had never been a director of an ACC game. Now, you tell me. However, here's how I looked at it. All right, what are you going to do? I know the world that we live in. Most people are afraid to speak of the world that we live in, but just hang in here for 1 second. So we went from, hey, man, Whitey's not going to hire a black guy back however many years you want to go back, to companies not going to keep a white guy around. Great. To we're getting rid of DEI. Maybe that's the progress that people have hoped for. Maybe that's the progress people have asked for. Maybe post-Obama, where everything became racial because Obama knew that at some point in his very Caucasian life, he was going to have to live as an African-American and stand on his African-American record. So he decided towards the end of his presidency that cops are bad, diversity reigns, whitey bad, let's go. Okay, that's fine. I got no problem with any of it. But maybe, just maybe, that now has morphed into a meritocracy. Wouldn't that be interesting? That now has morphed into, if you're really good, you get the job. If you're really bad, you get fired. It's going to happen in the NFL. The NFL is like, well, we got to make sure the NFL has diversity. Roger Goodell would rather have a half-filled Super Bowl than get a bad, quote, diversity check mark. Okay, well, what's going to happen, follow me here, is kind of the subset of what's happening in a broader view. 9 NFL coaches, minorities were hired, which means many are going to get fired. No offense, and I know everybody's a great coach that got hired in your city. We got the right guy, blah, blah. No. Coaches get hired, certainly in the NFL, and they're going to get fired. So what's going to happen? Are people going to complain? Oh, man, 3 black guys got fired and only 1 white guy got fired. Is that where we're at? Or have we moved along as a society to now say, wait, it's a meritocracy. If you're good, you get it. If you're not, you're gone. It's interesting. Stephen A. Smith brought a race baiter out yelling and screaming. That's great. But I haven't heard one person yet think the way that I just thought. Maybe that is the change. Maybe I am 7,000 miles off base. Maybe. Don't know. But what I'm just telling you seems logical. Give it some thought. Let me know what you think. Speaking of yelling, I like Barkley. Barkley's been on the show. I text with him occasionally. But all of this old man in our 60s, Barkley and I are the same age, wanting to punch somebody. Jim Boeheim came on our show, and he was going to punch Jay Will. Now Barkley comes out, and Barkley says, hey, if I see anybody wearing black people, wearing a Trump mugshot, I'm going to punch him. Really? Man, there have been a lot of big old brothers saying, yeah, Charles, you going to punch this military vet? Yeah, Charles, you going to come at me? All right. Take a swing, big boy. See, you got to understand something. In the world of sports, guys think they're tough, like Barkley, or like me, or like Boeheim. In the real world, you better be very careful who you mess with. Now, Barkley's not punching anybody, but this is a side note. You better be very careful who you mess with. I learned this the hard way. A friend of mine in college was picking up, he got in a problem, a hassle at a bar over his jacket. He left, went danced, came back, jacket gone, saw a guy, thought he stole it. I can't remember because it's been a long time whether he stole it or not. I don't know. Fight ensued. This guy was a football player. My friend got punched right in the nose. Nose went back into his brain, dead before he hit the floor. Turned out the guy that he punched was pretty adept with his fists. Was like I don't know if they had MMA back then, but he was a fighter guy. And it took boom. So I always thought to myself, we ain't doing that. Let me give you a picture. Let me give you a picture to that vein. See this guy? Read this caption. Anyone seen Charles Barkley? I heard he's looking for me. I grew up in the you hit me, I'm going to hit you back era. There's been a lot of this. A lot on my Twitter handle. From guys saying, yeah? You know what, Sir Chucky? Bring it. There's been a lot. Let's hear from Barkley. Let's hear what he had to say.
I'm just going to say this. If I see a black person walking around with Trump mugshot, I'm going to punch him in the face.
Charles.
No, Gail.
Charles.
Gail.
You really can't say that because, A, you don't mean that.
I mean that sincerely. I'm going to just tell you something.
And then you will be arrested for assault. And then what?
I'm going to bail myself out and go celebrate.
Don't encourage him. Don't encourage him. Okay, but go ahead.
Seriously.
Continue.
First of all, if I was at that
conference, yeah.
I'd have got up and walked out. That was an insult to all black people. Because he's basically just saying, and first of all, to compare black history where we've been discriminated against to his plight.
Yes.
Well, first of all, he's a billionaire. And they're prosecuting him for stuff he did wrong. They're prosecuting him for stuff he did wrong. And for him to compare...
It's still in the court system, Charles. We have to wait. It's still in the court system. But continue.
Well,
continue.
Some of the stuff is true. They did storm the Capitol. They did say that the election was stolen. Those aren't lies, Gail.
You know, it's kind of interesting. I did a little research on this. Nobody in that arena walked out. You know why? Because Trump, let's put Charles in context. And I understand Charles is doing his thing, and it's cute. But the truth of the matter is, Trump was there for 2 hours speaking to African Americans after he had done a rally somewhere else. Now, just imagine our president. And the reason nobody walked out was Trump was trying to explain this. And Barkley had no context to this. And that's sad, but it's Barkley. And I love him. But it's sad. He had said, look, they're coming for you through me. They are coming for you, regular people, African-American, black people, through me. And my mugshot is representative of them coming at me. And it really made sense. And I got to tell you, when you look at what Trump did in that rally, which he stood there and talked for 2 hours. 2 hours he spoke to the African-American, 300 African-American conservatives. And he talked about policy, and he talked about changing things, and he talked about how much better folks were when he was president, and he laid it all out there. That's what happened with that. Now, Wesley Hunt, if you follow him, is a combat veteran. Wesley Hunt spelled it all out. He ain't punching me. Put it in context. Stop lying, Charles. I was there. He was speaking about how the system is coming after me like the system has come after black people. That's what he was saying. But Barkley sees a soundbite, and Barkley's not going to work at that job. Gayle King has to work at that job and tee Barkley up. But Wesley, he said, I watched this interview he did with Benny Johnson, and it was incredible. Wesley Hunt's like, wait a sec, this isn't what happened. He didn't come out there and pander to African Americans like Joe Biden does. You know, I don't see Barkley calling out Biden's lies. I was raised in the African American church. I was the only white guy. If you don't vote for me, you ain't black. I don't see that. That's not even, there is no context to those. That's a man pandering to the black community. I don't see Barkley saying anything about that at all. I see him misrepresenting, at least according to a congressman, a Army veteran, a West Point graduate named Wesley Hunt, who said, Barkley, you ain't punching this military vet, brah. See, this is what we get into. And I'm disappointed in Barkley because Barkley famously said, you know, African Americans keep voting Democrat and African Americans keep being poor. Barkley knows better, and I'll bet you money Barkley's going to vote for Trump. But that whole thing about punching, at 61 years old, I'm hearkening today to what my wife, the lovely Lee Ross Dakich, always said about me. Dan, I'm sure there was a day when you were tough, but it ain't this day. So shut up. And I looked at her, and I said, you know what? You're probably right. You're probably right. You know, Wesley Hunt actually said this. He spoke to the nation today. He was strong. He was focused. He's ready. Joe Biden was on primary ballots tonight. He said nothing. The contrast speaks volumes. The stakes couldn't be higher for America. This, Trump, is what a commander-in-chief looks like. It's just tired. It is. Now, Jim Boeheim's 75 years old, and he talked about punching. That's funny. Barkley has punched somebody in the past. But, Charles, I'm sure, and I know there was, a day when you were tough, but this ain't that day. And learn a little context. And Gayle King, you're supposed to be better than that. You're supposed to be a journalist. You're not supposed to be a giggly little girl talking to the basketball player from 1988. You're supposed to be like, hold on, Charles, here's what actually happened. What do you think now? But that's not what we do. That's never what we do, except for on OutKick. And I saw this from Clay. January, every single media streaming, whatever you want to call this outlet, lost viewership, went dead. We gained 22%. Why? Because we're going to tell you like it is. Nah, it's amazing. Barkley, I hearken to Lee's words. I'm sure you're tough. I'm sure you were tough. I saw it for myself, but you ain't tough today. I have no idea. Zero, except I would fire them all. That's my answer to the Dartmouth basketball playing union. That's what my answer would be. So Dartmouth basketball voted to become a union. They're 6 and like 25. Okay, be a union. Fired, 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 fired. The Dartmouth basketball team voted 13-2 Tuesday to join its local service employees union, making the first time any group of college athletes has taken a public action as employees of their school and potentially setting a precedent that could significantly alter the business of college sports. Last month, a regional director of the National Labor Relations Board ruled that Dartmouth players were employees of their school. Tuesday's vote was the players' first official action as employees. Next step toward bargaining with the school. The players say they hope other Ivy League teams will follow suit and create a conference-wide collective bargaining unit. I'm anxious to see where this goes. But I know this, Dartmouth basketball stinks. No, it stinks. And if I were these guys, if I were the president, I'd be like, you guys are employees? Well, you're bad at it. Not very good. Dartmouth actually now is 7-21. They beat Harvard yesterday, so maybe they're rallying around their union vote. I honestly would love to have a great opinion on this. My opinion never changes on college athletes. I don't give a damn if you pay them. I don't give a damn if you unionize. I don't give a damn about NIL. I'm not participating in any of it. I don't have to coach any of it, although I must admit, I am sending, true story, I am sending a letter of application to Pepperdine in honor of my father. The Pepperdine basketball job opened up, and my father always told me that's where I should go. I got as much chance of getting the Pepperdine job as this shirt does of flying off my back right now. But I don't care. My father died, and I never applied for the Pepperdine job. He's like, I'm going. If you ever become the head coach at Pepperdine, you're hiring me, and I'm going. I'm like, done. So I saw my friend Lorenzo, or not really my friend, acquaintance, Lorenzo Romar got fired at Pepperdine. So I'm writing a cover letter after my shows today, actually after I play golf after my shows today, and I'm applying for Pepperdine. Now, if I do become the coach at Pepperdine, which is not going to happen, I would care about whether or not Dartmouth unionized. See, here's the deal. You know what I like? I like what I did last night. I like sitting there, watching, live betting, having my boy Danny Z texting me about what we should do. I like it. I do. I don't give a damn whether Dartmouth players unionize. I don't give a damn whether we start collectively bargaining. What I think is this. When Dartmouth loses their next game, just fire all of them. You're gone. Gone. That's my solution to it. Rip me all you'd like. But you're 7-21. 7-21. The only thing that protects you is the school doesn't pay you to play basketball, at least via scholarship. My stepdaughter was a Harvard athlete. She can go 7-1. She started at third base for 4 years, won 2 Ivy League championships, starting as a freshman all the way through her senior year. Had a great experience. She didn't need to unionize, but hey, Dartmouth, you go. Hey, are you guys employees? You're fired. That's what I'd do. Screw them. Well, they're just kids, man. Shut up. They're not just kids. No. Gasbag Mike Florio, who is in a constant battle, apparently, with OutKick. I knew Mike Florio when he was just getting started. I actually got him on my radio show numerous times, like once a week, and then he became a big deal, and thus, like Clarissa Thompson, it's actually the Clarissa Thompson rule. Nondescript guy or gal gets a job in media, does a good job, gets a better job. In Florio's case, really blows up. In Clarissa Thompson's case, DEI's her way to being a host. You think she's the best host possible out there of all of the hosts? No. Hot blonde lady gets job. Film at 11. Big deal. But anyway, Florio then, obviously, we could never get a hold of him after that. He's a putz, but he's a lawyer and he's been pretty successful. Now, he also is a guy that, well, you know what? You just don't like. Now, I understand. I watch a lot of my show. I understand if you just don't like me because I don't look like who I actually think I am. I look like my Uncle Roy, very likable guy, but I don't like my look. So I see what you say if you just look at me. Like, I'm best watched by not watching and just listening. I get it. Florio is just unlikable. He comes across as the guy that you just wanted to punch in high school, and you haven't stopped yet wanting to punch him. That's just who he comes across. So Florio's bitching, whining, and moaning. Let's get to the meat of the subject. To the folks who tried to dismiss our reports by saying we have no sources, you realize we had like 50 guests on our show last week from Indy, right? You realize pretty much everyone reads PFT, right? You realize I've been doing this for 23 years, right? See, I will never, ever, ever, ever not side with someone defending themselves. I got no problem with what Florio's saying here. None, zero, zip. Because here's the deal. Like Kirk Herbstreit said on our show, you're a human being, not a punching bag. People want to bang and bang and bang and bang and bang on you. You know what? At some point, you're going to bang back. You just are. So I really don't have a problem with this. I don't. If that's what Florio wants to say, then good. Now, I'm not sure Florio, people always say, well, let me give you the first reactions. This is what people say, and this is the way the world works. So after, can you guys put up that tweet by Florio? After, here's the reaction. get pulled over by the police for speeding. Do you know who I am? That's the first response. Florio going through menopause. Wow. This is the best line right here. This comes from G Money at C. Gremlich. With 50 guests as those great sources, how can you be so wrong so often? See, here's the deal, and I learned this firsthand. People gonna bitch no matter what you do. So you might as well put out something like that just to make yourself feel better. I go back to high school. One of my high school teammates was getting in the shower. Another of my high school teammates was in the shower. The guy that was in the shower, very well endowed. The guy getting in the shower, I don't remember. But the very well endowed guy pointed at the other guy's peni and said, "Hey, man, who you going to please with that?" And the guy's response was epic. He looks at the well endowed guy and says, "Myself." Solid answer. Nice comeback. That's what Mike Florio did here. Who you going to please with that? Tweet Mike Florio. You know who? Mike Florio. Herb Street said it. We're human beings. We're not punching bags. And you get to a point where you just say, you know what? I'm going to lay out some truths. People do read Pro Football Talk. People do have Florio on the biggest show in football, which is Sunday Night Football. Doesn't mean he's still not a douchebag with a punchable face and a punchable mouth and a punchable countenance. He is, of course. But he ain't wrong for defending himself. I'll stand with that because that's what I do. You get to a point where you're just like, screw you. Bam. Send. Enough. To quote the great Jamarcus Ellis, when I suspended him for drug use at Indiana University, I ain't mad about it. I ain't mad at you, Florio. Oh, man, I love the world we live in. Kim Mulkey. Kim Mulkey ain't happy. And when Kim Mulkey ain't happy, we all got to listen. Kim Mulkey, the diminutive one. I never heard back from her guy. But anyway, Kim Mulkey, scrappy. She has, as most of us do, interest, more interest than me, actually, in Caitlin Clark. And I don't blame Kim Mulkey. Here's what she had to say about the comparison between Caitlin Clark and Pistol Pete Maravich. She said, I don't look at comparing apples to oranges. What Caitlin has done is unbelievable. Her name will be right up there on the top. But he played over here with no three-point line 3 years. And I don't think we need to make too much of, she passed him because he's a man. She's who she is, and that's awesome. And her Lord knows when I played against her, I was like, are you kidding me? What a generational talent. Kim Mulkey's right. I was stunned by the whole Pistol Pete Maravich thing. I didn't see that coming. Pistol Pete took 600 more shots than Caitlin Clark in one less year of college. I mean, you can put numbers any way you want it. But I am with you, Kim Mulkey. I am with you on that. I get it. We always want to compare to the men. I get it. They look alike. They do. Say whatever you'd like, but they look alike. The games are alike. They are. So I totally understand why people are comparing. I was the first one to do it. I said that back a year ago. Man, this girl reminds me of Pistol Pete. It usually is what happens. People then catch up to me. But I ain't mad at Kim Mulkey. A lot of people are. What you mad about? Kim Mulkey just said what a lot of us think. It's kind of apples to oranges. One's the men's game back in the 60s, for crying out loud, and one's the women's game in 24, excuse me. What the hell are we doing comparing? Eras are tough to compare, man. You know, J.J. Redick said guys played against a bunch of plumbers. Not going to lie. People then showed pictures of Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell. They were the aberration. Most guys, you can look this guy up if you'd like. Most guys look like John Boozer. I think his name was John. Or most guys, I don't know, big, tall, Don Nort of Indiana University. Bald-headed guys, trying to ball. You know what I mean? Anyway, eras changed, game changed, but here's what I've always said about Caitlin Clark, and I'll continue to say this. I will not stop saying this. She is to women's basketball what Steph Curry to men's. Here's what it is. She has made the dramatic long three fashionable. Now, Larry Bird, he shot deep, but not like that. Michael Jordan, more mid-range, but he could shoot threes, but not like that. Name me a guy from Del Curry would shoot threes, but not like his son. Now, nobody shoots threes in the history of basketball like Steph Curry. Nobody shoots threes in the history of women's basketball like Caitlin Clark, and that's going to stay, both of them. I'm watching 15 games last night, and I got to tell you, guys make shots from deep. If you want to get grossed out, turn on Indiana versus North Carolina 1984. Watch the defense. Watch me guarding Michael Jordan from about here to that video screen, daring him to shoot an 18-footer. And try to compute how that defense would go over in this particular era. I'm watching dudes left and right fire shots in. Which leads me to Dan Wolken's dumbass. Dan Wolken is the doughy columnist for USA Today. Dan Wolken is a woke little putz. Dan Wolken never played a sport. He gave John Calipari squeezers to get a job with Calipari and then used those squeezers. I'll let you use your imagination to get a job with the USA Today. He's an awful, evil human being. He actually, because he wanted to do a hit piece on me, came on my YouTube chat, on my old show on 1070, under a fake name, and tried to goad me into admitting that I called some little kid a name. I knew immediately this is weird. I figured it out. It was Wolken. Just a dirtbag. Always has been, always will be. And now, and I hate to even give this idiot even a little bit of time, but woke, pizza stain, trying to be an athlete but never would, claims college basketball is an unappealing product with no stars. Man, good for you, baby. Good for you, Danny Wolken. Men's college basketball is a very flat, relatively unappealing product right now. Coaching legends are gone or diminished. No star players breaking through. Man, oh man, is that wrong. See, when you're like Wolken, you're trying so hard. He has no basis. He never coached. He never played. He's an awful writer. USA Today is going away. Gannett's stock is down. It's like everybody else in that industry. You're trying to hang on to a little piece of relevancy, so maybe, just maybe, an outfit like OutKick will pick you up. Dan Wolken can't get picked up by anybody because he's too stupid. He's a putz. He's an awful human being, just bad people. Bad. Now, I would argue last night when I was watching Purdue take on Illinois at Illinois, oof, there's some stars there. I mean, if you don't like Braden Smith, I can't help you. If you don't like Zach Edey, Coleman Hawkins, I don't know what to tell you. A hell of a game with a hell of an environment. I've always said this about college basketball. It was never about the coaches, although Vitale and others tried to make it like the WWE. The maestro, the general. Fine. It was always about the rivalries, the games, the quest for a title, always. And it shows up every single night. In fact, last night, it showed up on the hour. Starting with Purdue and Illinois in the second half, that Braden Smith, a little point guard here from Westfield, Indiana, that Mike Woodson did not think was good enough to play in his NBA system, just whooping ass. I mean, whooping ass. I mean, taking Illinois to the woodshed. Edey blocking shots, staring down. It was great theater. Then if you turned over Oklahoma and Cincinnati, not the greatest game, but my God, was it intense. Then you turned over Lipscomb and Northern Alabama. Now, why would I do that? I don't know. But listen to this story. Kid for Northern Alabama knocks in a runner from the three-point line with two guys on him to beat Lipscomb at the buzzer. But here's the caveat. The kid that made the bucket played at Lipscomb for 3 years before transferring to Northern Alabama. You think karma isn't a bitch in basketball? You think the basketball gods don't reward or take away? That's the beauty of college basketball, that puts a lying fool who is loving any attention that he gets because he was one of those dorks in high school that got his ass beat. Nobody paid attention. Now look at me. Then I turned on Georgia Tech and Wake. Wake takes the game late. Man, they're up 1. Next thing you know, Georgia Tech at the buzzer. Whap. Then I turned on Texas State and Old Dominion. Let me tell you what happened there. Why am I watching these? I don't know. But I kept seeing the good games, and I'm on ESPN Plus, and I just went to the next one. So then I'm watching Texas State against Old Dominion. Now, if you know the backstory, Jeff Jones, great player at Virginia, 40-year coach. I mean, he's a great dude. He retired, had a heart attack. The team was like, Coach, you're not letting us down if you retire. Please get yourself right. Okay. Texas State wins in overtime. But first, shot goes up. Missed. Rebound to Old Dominion. On our clock, it says 6.5 seconds when he gets the ball. Kid dribbles twice, 4 seconds. He shoots it from half court. Boom. But guess what? The clock on our TV was a malfunction. It wasn't the clock in the arena. And when they showed it, the ball was in hand as the red light came on around the basket. No basket. Overtime. Texas State wins. Then I go watch San Diego State, and I watch these simultaneously at UNLV. Holy hell. Nevada at Boise. Holy hell are these great games. UNLV wins its 9th out of 10 against a really good San Diego State team. In fact, if Indiana had beaten San Diego State, it would be by far their best win of the year. San Diego State might win the Big Ten. No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't beat Purdue. They would be, along with Illinois, second. So would Boise. So would Nevada. Nevada went into Boise, won their 6 in a row. I'm telling you, man, I know we all get jazzed up for the NCAA tournament, but here's the deal. When you're a bettor, in-game, live bets, and you find games, holy cow, is it great. So Dan Wolken, suck it. Dan Wolken, I don't even care what you said. Suck it anyway.